to do hot mics.
And we are live. Hello and welcome to Developer Insights. I'm David.
And I'm Justin.
Together we are the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
We also founded Codename, so we've got that going for us too.
We will be your hosts for this episode and for every episode.
Because when we're not here, the show doesn't happen.
I guess that's why we've been doing this for well over a year now, and there are only 51 episodes.
Speaking of, today is our 51st episode.
There's absolutely nothing special about that number.
Yep. Wait, are you being sarcastic? I can't tell.
No, I'm serious. It's not an interesting number.
Well, it's not like prime or something?
Nope. Divisible by 3 and by 17.
I guess that means the next major milestone isn't until episode 100.
Which is like forever from now.
Well, we'll do something really special for it, though. We got lots of time to plan.
Like what?
Let's see. Sean can teach us how to make pancakes, or Jason can teach us how to play the guitar.
Yeah, or we can have a comedian on who can teach us how to write jokes.
Ooh, harsh. Anyway, we're here to answer development and design questions about Idle Champions.
And if you don't ask any questions, however, you may have to suffer through Justin's one-man reenactment of, this week it's Iron Man.
Yes, we've started rewatching all the Marvel movies in cinematic order, so it's very fresh in my mind.
If Idle Champions were a Marvel superhero, which one do you think it would be?
Oh, that one's easy. Ant-Man.
Is this because, just like Paul Rudd, Idle Champions is eternally young?
Close, but not quite.
All right. Because why, then?
Because of the bugs.
Harsh. Anyway, as always, we have pulled some questions forward from the previous show that we did not get to, so we will answer some of those while we are waiting for new questions to come in, as well as I have a short list of updates of items that we have flagged to get looked at by the dev team. So without further stalling for time, if that's what we've been doing, let's get into those. Okay. So off the top here, I have some fixes listed. Well, one fix anyway, that went out partially on Tuesday, and part of it is data, which will be coming later as soon as that gets pushed. And that is that there was an issue with the Black Viper Jewel Thief ability, whereas the gems were being incorrectly counted on your active party. So that portion is fixed, was pushed on Tuesday, but additionally that ability will be showing in the formations ability list on the character sheet once the data for that is pushed, which I don't actually have an ETA on that, but the next time the data gets pushed, that feature will get out as well. We did push a few minor updates to the shop if you're on shop 3. I know those of you on shop 2 are shaking your fist at me right now, but these changes hopefully will pull shop 3 sort of back into a better place, and that'll let everyone eventually get out to shop 3. So it's good for you regardless. And that is that the X button on the item detailed view now, the one if you've clicked in to view an item, actually will now return you to the item list. I know this was well received because after we pushed it, we saw someone post that whoever thought of this should get a raise. To which I said, Chris, don't get any ideas, but it was definitely a good change, as well as that we are also still, we've resumed showing the chest screen underneath the shop, so that when you finish opening it, when you finish purchasing chests, you can get back to opening them if you had done so. It seemed that our desire to pull that out was not leading to chests being opened after their purchase, so we put that back in underneath the shop. So those are the updates for the fixes. We still have a list of ongoing items. I checked in with Peter today. He has 4 of them assigned, and 3 of them have not been assigned yet. So they are getting looked at, or at least they are now assigned to be looked at. And that is that we would like to change the options on loading a save formation to include all 3 options of recalling missing champions, skipping missing champions, and just canceling. Right now it just has recall or cancel. We're going to put pity timers on the next epic. The pity timers for chests on the time gate screen and on the chest screen, or on the chest screen in the store. This option is assigned. I've assigned it to myself, and I do it every week, which is to bug Justin about the missing node on the strong core. You're going to get to that, right?
Maybe.
Okay. Because I don't know that they believe you at this point.
Maybe.
Okay. Have loaders imps automatically spawning, saving feature with formations, and I have got it also on my list here to make sure that we get the visual changes into the cards so that you can read the rarity regardless of color. Okay. Let's move on to questions from the previous show.
Let's do
First
it.
one starting off here is from Winterborn12. Okay, Winterborn12. I have noticed some of the champions, like Ashara, have listed when selecting a specialization show how many champions that they affect. Is this going to be added to more champions, for example, freely?
Yeah, so this is a great question. We get this every few shows. And yes, there are plans to expand sort of the expanded sort of specialization information to as many champions as it makes sense to. Our first sort of pass was really direct. It was like for abilities or specializations that is just directly impacted by the number of champions in the field that match the tag. There are some that are kind of indirect. So, for example, Jarlaxle has two specializations, one that impacts gold find based on one certain parameter and one that impacts his own damage based on another parameter. But the specializations themselves actually just affect abilities that then are affected by those other things. So it's we left it out of that because it could be a little bit confusing if you don't quite know how that works. So we're trying to kind of be careful about how we expand it and make sure that everything's still very clear. I can definitely take another look at freely and see if that would be a low-hanging fruit one that we can just cross off really soon.
Okay. Next question from Idle and Chill. Will we ever be able to see patron challenge info when we're not in an adventure? For example, and I can say on the example, but I think this is the only other place it would be, which is on the main map. Particularly asking to help pick which adventures to go on with which next. Wow, words. Which adventure to go on next with which patron? With which? Wow, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't
no,
read that today.
I
With
think
patron.
I think the problem here is that there's some bad grammar in this question. So
Next.
shame on you, Idle and Chill.
Hopefully they're
No.
not here today.
No, it's a good question. If the words are not particularly in the right order, it's still a good question. And the answer to it is thankfully is yes. We are planning a way, and actually I was looking at a prototype of that yesterday when I was in the office, of a way to basically be able to flag some patron challenges and then be able to see your progress of them on both the campaign map and in the game itself. So yes, there's a way coming for that, and it's looking cool and good and awesome, and I'm excited about it.
Very descriptive.
Cool and good and awesome are great descriptive words. Okay, the next question is from Lydiath. 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 Oh, I get it. They ask, are there any plans on are there any plan on reworking or cleaning up the inventory? Currently, there is no rhyme or reason to item order, and also order shifts as items are added and removed, i.e., bounty or blacksmithing contracts.
Well, I'll have you know, there is a rhyme and reason. It's just not user facing. It may just be the order and item type, and that order is the item ID that they went into the database when they originally added. That's the rhyme and the reason. But that said, that's not a good rhyme or reason for the ordering on them. I feel like this was asked in the past, as far as like a way to reorganize or rework the inventory. And I mean, it's certainly very utilitarian the way that it's set up right now. And it probably would be to a great advantage to have them sorted by, say, or maybe categorized by types like tabs or something. They sort between them. I know when we initially put that together, the number of items that were available was substantially less, especially on the chest side. You can really fill that up with chests if you have a lot of event chests. And we have, of course, added additional potions over the years. Not quite as many as we've added for chests, but that list has grown as well. So yeah, I think we probably should put that on the list at some point to do something for sort of filtering and maybe just categorizing the items on that screen, so at least you can filter your chests out. Yeah, I'll definitely tag that, but I'm not sure exactly when we'll get to it, but certainly it'll be an improvement. Okay, next question here is from Evil Emperor Zerg.
Mm.
When does the game determine items have exceeded their level? I have 3 champs with shiny slot 6 that are past level 251. It appears you can still upgrade them past 251 and even past 512.
Yeah, so so you shouldn't be getting more equipment in slots that are at their max level. Now the max level it's not just a fixed thing where all slot 6 items have a max level. Some of them, depending on what their effect are, don't actually have a max level. And there are other slots and items that do have a max level that are not in slot 6. The max level also is dependent on the shininess of the item. So golden, shiny, and normal items have a different max level. And the way those would work is if you had like a normal one that was at the max level and then you got it shinied, then the next time the code that checks for being over max level was run, it would refund you a bunch of item levels. So you shouldn't be able to get any more levels for those ones once they do actually hit the max, if there is a max. And then the refund system kicks in, I think every time that you start a new adventure or reload the game or switch parties.
All right. And the last question that we pulled forward from last week is from Orion the Wise, asking, with the overloading system in Modron cores, and since it's not possible to overload all nodes in the first cores, can we expect new Modron pieces in the future, like a cross piece that allows one pipe to jump over another, which may help not share didn't evaluate in a core?
Yeah, I think there are probably some more pieces that we could add. Certainly the cross piece that lets you jump over. The other one I've kind of heard is sort of two pieces that sort of goes across the corners, so that you can kind of have 2 different flows go through a spot without merging or separating. So yeah, I think there's some cool ideas of new pieces we could do there. There's also there are some other sort of upgrades to cores that I've been considering lately. I know we've gotten the question of being able to over level cores recently, and so there's some interesting things that we've been considering with regards to that. It just comes down to when we will get around to having the tech time to implement that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's lots of cool things we could do with Modron cores to make them a little bit more powerful, especially since, like you say, we've got that overload system now, and some of the earlier cores, it's not actually possible to run those. So
all right, on to this week's question, and we've got a cheeky question snuck in here in position 1 from Mars.
Would you like me to ask this one?
He is pointing out, yes, he says, I am abusing my power as a mod to get my question in first. I think we will allow it.
Yes, this question is from Mares, and they ask, can we please get a slider for using multiple scrolls in trials? It's a huge pain to activate one at a time. Who's this Mares guy?
Yeah, you might be pronouncing that wrong.
Pronouncing?
Yes. So, it's been a while since I've looked at activating scrolls in trials, but if it is something that needs multiples and we don't have a slider on it, that seems like a perfectly reasonable request. So
it does feel like it's one where you have to click and then confirm and click and confirm and click and confirm and click and confirm, which would, certainly be somewhat annoying.
Okay. I love you didn't highlight that. Here. We'll make it so. Just that part. Okay. Moving on. Next question here. This one is the actual first question from the chat today. This one is from Emote. And he's asking, are we likely to see another legendary dismantle event soon? As more champion releases, the more necessary it feels.
Yeah, I think that it is not unlikely that we will see another legendary dismantle event in the nearish future. Just looking at the calendar here. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming down the pipe.
Oh, we're just 2 spoilers, Justin. I don't know. What's your quota for today?
My quota is 3. I do 3 spoilers in every episode, but normally you don't point them out, and so then people don't know whether I'm just being sarcastic or giving a spoiler.
I hope people don't go backwards and try and look for those, because that's just not true.
Or is it? Maybe that's a spoiler. That's my third one.
All right, next question. This question is from Rough Rider 91. Can you explain the difference between the 2 shades of Tiamat health? Is it representing what is described in the FAQ? Or is it representing what is described in the FAQ? That was it. End of question.
So yes, the 2 shades of Tiamat's health. So the way it works is Tiamat's health bar goes down throughout the day based on the party's current DPS. But if you increase your DPS in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, it will simulate as if you had been doing sort of the max DPS for the party the entire day, even if you only started doing more DPS in the middle of the day. And that extra little shaded section is the extra damage that will be done at the end of the day when it simulates you having done the max DPS for the full day. And the reason we did that is because we didn't want it to be a case where, in order to maximize your DPS to Tiamat, you had to sort of load up the game and do your daily adventure and get your bonus DPS from that right away, because it was supposed to, or that would just be really annoying. It would just create another really annoying appointment mechanic that we don't want to put in. So basically, you should be able to do, and people are chat are saying it doesn't work that way. Well, that's not my fault. That's how I designed it. But we can look into that if that's not how it's actually functioning, because it is supposed to drop down and take that extra health off at the end of the day. And the simple way of saying is it's supposed to, at the end of the day, it's supposed to match up the health as if you've been doing the maximum party DPS the entire day. So we can look into that if that's not actually functioning. This is the first I've heard of that not actually functioning. Oh my God, there's a giant behind you, Dave. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, I see it.
There was like a man who's like 9 feet tall.
Yeah, we are deep into renovations here at the office, and there's still some work going on behind me. So that is what you're seeing back there. Never mind the man on the stilts. He's not here to fight the Queen Alien.
That wasn't Elisa?
It was 3 Elisas in a trench coat. Okay. Next question. The next question is also from Rough Rider 91. When might refunds be awarded for over-leveling Sentry's speed item?
I would say that is coming up also relatively soon. I think if I had to look at when the legendary dismantle might come and when there might be refunds awarded for over-leveling Sentry's speed item, I would say that those are likely fairly close together.
Okay.
Take from that what you will. I love the sound of stilts behind you. That's awesome. Makes it sound like we got robots in our office.
Why don't we have robots in the office?
I don't know. I count that one, by the way, as the same. Since it's the same date range, I think it's the same spoiler as the legendary dismantle thing. So I still have one left. The next question is from Emote, who asks, could we have some way of overriding the time gate lockout on champions whose event is upcoming / running? If we know, but we want to spend our time gates pieces on those champions anyway.
Huh. Well, that's a good question.
It's an interesting question.
I'd be curious to know sort of how frequently that's come up. And sort of if there's a good reason to want to do that, or if you want to focus on a different champion during the event, and so focus just using that time gate on that anyway would make sense.
Yeah, I'm also interested in knowing kind of the reason you would like to do this. Because it does sound like it is something that we personally lock out to try and reduce confusion and reduce the opportunity for players to accidentally use time gate pieces on a champion that is about to be free to get. So it may very well be Devil Crayon says that Emote really likes prudence and wants more prudence while prudencing. So this might be a very, very specific edge case request that might not necessarily be worth the development time.
That's true. That said, I think, and in this particular case, you might bug Sean, like just open this, like just take the time gates and open me a time gate for prudence.
I don't know if Sean actually. I think Sean would then have to bug Peter for that, and then Peter would probably bug Jacob for that, and then Jacob would bug Stefan for that, and then it would just go around and around in a circle.
Just go in and edit the data. It's fine. Seeing Sean, I can't do that. We just add it as a feature on the admin page. Just open a time gate of a particular champion. All right.
Okay, next question. This one is, holy crap, Rough Rider 91 just got all his questions in right off the bat. So this question is from Rough Rider 91, who asks, how are the internal tests going on the background party rework? Is it still scheduled for community testing in 1 to 2 weeks? Perpetually scheduled for community testing in 1 to 2 weeks.
Is it like fusion power?
Yes.
We're always just on the cusp.
5 to 10 years away.
Yeah, it's always that distance. Yeah, actually, so I know Mark is in the process of merging the branch he's been working on into the main branch this week. I know he's doing some this morning that caused some little hiccups for people who are working on the development server. So that's with the intention that the new code paths will be there and can be run with a flag on them to say, hey, if you're on the new path, and then use that. So that's the first step before the internal testing starts on that with people that are not Mark. So with that going underway, that means that soon that will be available to those of us internally to test with. And then depending on how those tests go, then moving on to the community testing. So it is progressing. The code getting merged in is a very good sign because it means he's confident that it actually isn't going to break anything. So yeah, definitely progressing. Soon TM. I don't know about the 1 to 2 week time frame for community testing.
Is it around the same timeline as the refriends for Sentry and the legendary dismantle?
Could be, actually. Okay.
Probably not.
Oh man, look at this. Holy smokes.
Yes, Rough Rider has a lot of questions in here.
Save these up. Okay, next question, which is also from Rough Rider. Can the frequently requested all champs damage info be added as a tab to the pop-out DPS screen?
Yes. So this is actually similar to some stuff we talked about last week. We were talking about kind of all champion damage or global damage effects and how we would potentially display that on the screen somewhere. And last time we were talking about kind of displaying it in the incoming effects in the champions in the profile when you pop it up, and you can look through the incoming effects tab. And we were kind of talking about how there'd really be too many of these to really make a lot of sense to have them there, because they would just make an incredibly long scroll window and would be tough to parse. But maybe having them aggregated together per champion and having them as part of the DPS screen is a little bit easier, a little bit more of a first pass that could potentially work. Maybe I would have to really look and I have to get a dev to kind of look and see how easy it would be to pull that information out on a per champion basis, because I'm not actually 100% sure in the effect system how easy that would be to do. But we could certainly have someone take a look at it.
Yeah, I can't say off the top of my head either. Okay.
Let's see. Next question here. This is the last one you get, Rough Rider 91. Then we're not going to answer any of your other ones. So this is the one we chose.
Let's be fair. These are good questions. That's why
they're
we're
good
asking
questions.
them.
Yeah.
It's not a case of we're not going to cut people off if they have a good question.
So the next one is from Rough Rider 91, and they say, can an icon be displayed on the Parties button when a background party's status changes away from auto progress. So basically, like, alert, this party has walled or gotten killed by Tiamat, unless they had Voronika in their formation.
I think the short answer to that is probably yes.
Sounds like a good idea, actually.
Doesn't even sound that difficult.
Oh, it sounds really easy.
I'm gonna tag it.
I mean, the dialogue itself will say when auto progress is off. So
the background parties are running, like regardless of whether the dialogue is up or not. So that data should be there. An event when that happens should trigger. So I don't see why.
Sounds like a really good,
should be a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on 1 second though. Before you go on to the next question, I did see a question here that also from Rough Rider that reminded me that I needed to comment on something, and that is that I missed it earlier. As we did move the Steam client from a 32-bit build to a 64-bit build, as has been requested numerous times here on stream and on the Discord. One caveat on that is we have had a few reports from players who are now found themselves in a place where they couldn't load up the game. We are sort of looking at that and trying to determine what makes the best, like what the best course of action on that is. But just be aware that we did make the switch, and we did have some players who apparently were running on 32-bit systems. I know Sean has inquired to them and sort of why they're in that particular situation, but yeah, more to say. I don't think I have more to say other than that we did the switch, and we're watching what's happening for reports of players who are finding that they actually needed a 32-bit version. So,
the Lurking Writer says, "I thought Nintendo made the switch." Okay. Next question.
Is actually just Dexter.
Dad jokes.
Inside joke.
Okay, the next question is from the Grandolph. Anyway, it's from this person. And their question is, I'm having a lot of crashing of my game on my phone. Don't worry, I still love the game. My question is, if I want to run the game on a gem farm, is it best if I stop background parties, or is there something else I can do to make it less demanding on my phone?
Yeah, it's a good question. And then, I mean, the other question, of course, is sort of what type of phone you're running on. Yes. I know that certainly on iOS, there can be issues around memory usage. And I did see a question that flew by in the chat earlier on, which I assume is somewhere down in the doc, talking about sort of how much memory the game uses on iOS. That does strike me as something that probably needs a pass. Like, we need to go take another look at that. Mm-hmm. It was one of the things that when I was sort of directly overseeing that I was checking on the regular basis. And it is one of those things that our artists, bless our artists, love to push in graphics that are larger than they should be, which is sort of end up with custom animations or other pieces that don't skeletalize well, that don't sort of break down into pieces well, can result in accidentally using a bunch of extra memory than intended. And so it's probably time for a pass on that, just to make sure that there isn't stuff getting loaded up that is sort of wildly out of proportion. But sort of the general answer there is, if you do stop background parties, it would reduce that is probably a pretty straightforward way to reduce memory consumption on your phone. Having background parties does actually, despite not seeing the visuals that are going on there, they are loaded, and so that does add additional memory pressure to the device. And if it is, an iOS device and it's one of the older ones, well, I guess Apple was always a little bit stingy with the amount of memory they put in their devices. Typically, sort of like an Android device of a similar generation always tended to have 50 to 100% more memory. Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is we do need to do a pass on that. 100% agree on that. And stopping background parties is probably the best way. Nothing else comes to mind immediately that would really reduce the memory pressure on it if it's a memory pressure related crash, which is probably what it is. Would be my best guess.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm loving that we're getting like Q&A and a show behind you there. It's fantastic.
Commodore 64 for life. Okay.
All right. Yes. Let us continue with the questions. Where is the next? Oh, so the next question here was actually one that I was going to ask instead of pulling another one of Rough Riders questions in order to give you an opportunity to address that. But we've kind of answered it. It was a question from Babili G 2000, another frequent question asker, who says they've been away for a while, heard a rumor that the Idle Champions client for Steam recently went 64-bit. And they say, I thought it was always 64.
No, it has always been 32, primarily because we started that way, and then sort of from a compatibility point of view, we didn't want to push anyone out who was running on a 32-bit system. We were watching the Steam numbers. I know it was brought up probably 2 or 3 streams ago. Someone had pointed out that the percentage of Steam users on like the Steam hardware survey had dropped down to like less than 1% for 32-bit. I think it was actually, when we looked at it, I think it was 0.01% is what it was at for the July 2022 numbers. And so we're looking at that, we're like, well, that's probably a safe number to say we can switch on that particular client. So yeah. Like I say, hopefully we can work through anyone who's found themselves in a situation where they can't play, but we're still trying to figure out what makes the most sense to how to proceed in that front. Okay, next question here. This one is from Seawolf177. The question is, can you change Shandy's timer so that it doesn't stop during boss bag pickups and screen transitions like other timers in the game?
So I was looking into this, and I assume this is the timer until she starts to provide speed again, as opposed to some other timer. I'm not sure what other timer Shandy would have. So this would be a case where basically you want the speed ability to start up if you... Yeah, I don't think this particularly makes sense, because this would basically allow you to kind of game the speed ability and just kind of wait to pick up a boss bag until Dash came back online, which feels like it's kind of against the spirit of what the intention is of the design of that ability, which is if you can go for 15 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever it is, without being hit, that you get that speed. So it feels to me like that's probably not something we'll change. With that said, we do want to look at some of those abilities that have timers and make sure that we're consistent about them pausing or not pausing when you're changing areas or doing boss bag pickups. So yeah, that is something we can look at, but I don't think we'll make a change to how Shandy's functions there. Maybe we can make a feat to make it power up sooner or something like that.
All right. Well, looks like it's your favorite time of the stream, Justin.
Oh my gosh! Does that mean it's the time for the the giveaway to launch?
Spoilers.
Yeah, that was my 5th spoiler of the stream. Holy crow! We're on a roll today. So yes, very, very shortly we will be starting a giveaway in the chat. So if you're not in the Twitch chat right now, enter the Twitch chat right now and type background giant into the chat to enter, to have a chance to win 42 chests of your choice. Those would be any chest. If you win, you can pick any chest in the game, and we'll just give you 42 of those. So it can be any chest, really. I would pick Modron component chests because those are my favorite type of chests, because I like to play with the little pipes and make the liquid turn funny colors. Dave likes chests, the types of chests that don't exist, called aluminum chests. They don't do anything and they don't exist.
Whoa! I have a new answer to that. I think after last week's, I want admin chests. Actually, clairvoyant admin chests. These are the ones that you open them and you think about an item you want, and then you open it and it gives you that item, golden epic, every time.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
I didn't even know those chests existed.
Keep in mind, if you ask, team working on them last week instead of other issues.
If you win the giveaway and then you ask for a type of chest that doesn't exist, we just don't give you any chests. So don't do that unless you're absolutely sure it exists. Anyway, that giveaway is going on now. It will end very, very shortly, and they will announce a winner in chat. So good luck to everyone.
Okay. Moving on.
Let's move on.
This question is from What and Varno. I don't know any Varno. You? Okay. Would you consider changing something so that Voronika's puppet spec buff isn't a completely dead specialization on support champions without positional formation abilities? Since the nerf, it provides 0 benefit on a handful of champions.
Yeah, I think that's possibly something we can look into. Definitely so the nerf, the adjustment was the design of it was that it should only apply to positional formation abilities. It was in fact applying to all formation abilities, which was not the intention of that. So that is something we can potentially look at and see if there's something we can do there for champions without positional formation abilities. On the other hand, I don't particularly mind sometimes having specializations that are not beneficial in certain situations. There's certainly a lot of formation or specializations that are like that, where there's just a really obvious choice because one of them doesn't do anything and the other one at least gives you something. With that said, we do want there to always be at least one specialization that does do something. So it's possible that a fix for this might be to just add a third option to Voronika's second set of specializations there, so that you've got something to use if you've got a support champion that doesn't have positional support abilities. And that that is potentially something we can do. We can kind of see what's going on there.
We've reached the end of the highlighted questions here. Now I got to highlight more.
I got one more highlighted for me.
It's true. This is the next question. It is from Slim493. That's what I'm going with. Is it intentional that the bottom left boost on the fast core is going opposite the flow of the rest?
Yeah, so this is a great question because this caused me to actually load up the game and double check what direction it's going, and then compare it to the spec from the design document. And it appears that it is going in the same direction as the spec from the design doc. I don't, looking at it now, I see what you mean with going in the same direction as the rest of the core. I'm not 100% sure that that was intentional when I was designing the core, or if that was just a happy little accident that sort of 5 of the 6 of the outside fixed boosts were all going in the same direction. They're all going clockwise, except for that one. With that said, I don't think we will change it because similar to the kind of issues with the strong core, is if we start to make changes to it, it could break the flow that some existing players have set up. So we probably won't change that, but it's an interesting thing to point out. And like I say, I don't think that was actually intentional, that the flow all be going in the exact same kind of clockwise direction there. I think that was just a happy little accident.
All right, Bob.
The next question here I've highlighted for you, Dave, because it was specifically directed at you. And it's from Arisianastic, who I feel like made that name just so I would have a tough to pronounce name. And they said, David, how many Boo Berries could Boo gouge if Boo Berries had eyes Boo could go for?
27 and a quarter.
Oh, yeah. Very informative. Thank you. The next question is from Netta42, and they ask a slightly more serious question. Are there any plans to improve the scaling for 4K displays, i.e. the UI panels, text, and familiars need to be twice as large to match 1080p?
Yeah, so this is a long-standing, bit of a long-standing issue / question. Early on, we did want to look at improving the 4K support. we ran into a few issues when looking at that, and one of them is actually something that now that I think about it, we have recently resolved, and that would be the text sizes, and that is because the initial font system that we were using in the game was a sort of a sprite sheet based font system, which works by rendering off the characters for the particular font onto a sheet, and then we have metadata associated with that has the spacing and the kerning and all that fun stuff associated with it, and then we reconstruct them by creating geometry for them and then putting those sprites on them. Lots of fun, but the issue actually with that is that it works great for small fonts, but as the fonts get larger and larger, they take up more and more space, which becomes untenable very quickly. But one of the things that we worked through for the localization was actually improving the font rendering system to use something that is called assigned distance field renderer, which actually renders out one sheet and then uses data on it to get very crisp looking text at basically a large range of font sizes, which may or may not be interesting to the audience here. But the point
I've fallen
is,
asleep, so
the point is that we can now actually do fonts that would be at an appropriate size for 4K. So that does remove one of the barriers to it. We do have some other minor issues around that. That is that a lot of the dialogues are kind of fixed size. So that would be a little bit tricky, but kind of the main game portions could be enlarged. The best way to do it right now for 4K is just to set the application to be double size for scale. But yeah, I think the long story short is that we would like to have additional support for 4K, but it's really on a low priority position right now, just because we have so many other items that would, I think, have greater impact. And if you do like set the window scaling, for a 4K on it, like when you're in Windows, you can set the application scale. It does seem to work just fine. Other than, of course, few items are not quite as crisp as they could be. But definitely something I'd like to see addressed. Not something that's on a high priority list right now. Also, assigned distance fields are great for fonts. Okay. Next question here is from Branwen Kenku. And this question is, are there any plans to expand on the global incoming effects? It would be nice to see a better depiction of gold find, enemy spawn rate, and other effects that are getting added via champs, patrons, and favor.
Yeah, this is something that Crusaders actually did after my tenure on that game, and they had a little bit of an extra info thing in the top left DPS panel, or DPS and gold panel, that you could pop out to see things like your gold find buff from things, or your spawn speed, or your current drops per your chance to get like extra drops from kills and stuff like that. I think that's something that we probably could port over to champions. I don't see any reason we wouldn't want that information to be freely available, and definitely something that players could show off and be like, hey, I've got 21 drops per champ or per kill, and then be like, oh, how'd you get that, and what combination of things do you have to do that? So I think that's something, if that's kind of what we're asking for here, then yeah, I think that's something that we could potentially do down the road.
Okay. Next question here is from Evil Turnip. How about adding additional...
It's from Evil Turnip.
That's how I read it.
I see the T.
Looks right to me. How about adding additional ways to get Modron components? Like a feat for Nordrum, why am I saying that wrong? Nordrum. That causes component pieces to drop from constructs. That's pretty cheeky.
Yeah. So the first part of the question, how about adding additional ways to get Modron components? I think that's definitely something that we could look at. I do think that sort of, we've gone to 4 parties, like that's a lot of Modron cores to really gear out, and so I think definitely there's a opportunity to have more Modron components kind of naturally dropping in the game, or more Modron chests dropping in the game. I don't think that we would do a feat for Nordum that causes component pieces to drop from constructs, simply because that could very easily be exploited to basically have infinite component pieces, which we wouldn't necessarily want to do. I don't think that would be very good for the game in the long run. So yeah, I think we're thinking about ways to maybe up the drop rate of Modron chests once you get later into the game, especially once you're at 4 parties, or around that kind of level in the game. But no plans for something that's like super farmable like that.
No, they have to add a patron challenge to farm the constructs, and once a week you can get pieces from it. Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Okay, here's a question for you, Dave. It's highlighted in blue, and the question is there a possible?
No,
is
you have
it
to
possible?
say the name first.
Oh, sorry. It's from IKEA 87.
That was easier than I thought.
Yeah, you thought it was going to be hard, but I just like made up the pronunciation. They ask, is there a possibility to get a look at all menus closing with escape or the back button on tablet? Currently, several menus don't close with escape, and it brings up the main menu. For example, the champion selection, pop-up, and familiar menu. But there are more.
You have an escape button on your tablet? No, I assume they got a keyboard hooked up to it. Yeah, for sure. It's certainly possible that we should need to do a pass on that. I'll add that onto the list. All the dialogue should close with escape. If something got missed, that's just an item that's missed. So.
I think it's probably the swap, the champion swap pop-up and the familiar are both they're less considered dialogue and more considered pop-ups, and so it's probably why they've just gotten missed.
Yeah, I'm catching flack in the chat. Regardless, the escape button doesn't close anything on PC either. Yes, yes. I know. We'll take a look.
Let's see. Next question is from... Are you just picking all the ones with the hard to pronounce names, or is that...
No.
This one's from Orphabus2, who says, Idle Champions has definitely became definitely unplayable in my 2 gigabyte of RAM iPad because of the frequency of crashes. I read it's because of the RAM. I'm buying a new device, and I would like the new iPad to be able to run the game properly. What amount of RAM should I aim for?
Yeah, so I mentioned this question a little earlier on because I saw it go by in the chat. The kind of the tricky part about this is my understanding is that you don't really get a choice on iPads. Sort of it comes with the RAM that it comes with, and I'm not even sure that they list that in the specs. Like when you're looking at when the purchase specs. I know later you can dig it up and be like, oh, it has this much RAM in it, but I feel like they on purposely obfuscate that, and I think it's because, as I mentioned before, the iOS devices typically had less RAM than the Android devices, and they didn't want consumers comparing those numbers. But I think certainly, as mentioned before, we need to do a pass and make sure that we're not there aren't graphics getting through that have a lot more that are a lot larger than they need to be, because that often was was an issue for on iOS devices with less RAM. And from the question, you're saying you've got 2 gigs of RAM, so that should be enough. And I put should be, but like I say, unfortunately, you probably won't get a choice if you're sort of modern iPad has X, or iPad Pro has Y, but you won't be. And then sort of the cost considerations on that. If you're looking at an iPad, I would definitely not say buy an iPad Pro just to play Champions because it's got 3 gigs of RAM instead of the regular one that's got 2 gigs of RAM. Maybe I'm rambling a little bit.
Yeah, they don't list the amount of RAM in the iPad Pro on the Apple Store, on the Apple site here. Yeah,
I know they don't want you to compare them to other tablets on that particular metric because they don't compare as well. Not that that's something. Yeah, I have an iPad. It's a great device. Yeah, I don't feel like I've provided a good answer to this, other than some of this is on us. And
oh, interesting. So you can look it up, and the all of the iPad Pros with less than a gig or less than a terabyte of memory have 8 gigs of RAM, while the 1 and 2 terabyte variants offer 16 gigs of RAM, the highest ever in an iPad.
That's crazy. What does the typical
That's
iPad
that's
have?
the
Though?
M1 iPad
Like, what
Pro.
if you
Does
were
the
just
M1
buying
iPad Pro even run our
the
game?
I think so.
Okay.
But what if you were running just like the regular iPad, just like the normal iPad?
Is there a regular iPad?
I know they labeled them in a way that's, but there's just like the 2020 whatever the latest refresh was.
See, I don't even know how to search for that.
Ah.
It's yeah. They've made it very hard to try and figure that out. The other problem is like with the iOS, like I think our game just gets shut down when it goes over like 50% of the device, the memory or the memory that the device has, regardless of whether that memory if there's more available. I feel like it's just very, very aggressive about killing the game.
There was a certain amount of memory that they were reserving specifically for the OS. I think on older devices, like on a 1.5 gig one, it was that number was 300 megs, and so if you used anything over, or maybe it was on the 1 gig. Yeah, I know it was on the 1 gigabyte versions. If it reserved 300 for the OS, which meant if you went over 700 megs, you got terminated by the OS. But I imagine that's a percentage that shifts as the amount of memory goes up, because the OS, unless the OS is bloating with the memory, and I don't think it is at the same rate. So anyway,
there's an awful lot of pixels to fill on those new iPads.
Someone put in the chat here, iPad Pro, iPad Air 5th gen, 8 gigabyte. So it looks like the modern ones do have Great Call the Genius Bar. Looks like any of the modern ones do have enough RAM, or should. Yeah. RAM. All right, now we're getting RAM jokes.
Yeah, we're getting very deep into the weeds on this. I think we spent more time on this question than any other question today.
Okay, let's move on then.
Sure. Here's a question for you, Dave, from Bill Slowski002, who asked,
"This is for you.
Did Justin fix the missing Modron piece yet?" No, it's for you.
No, he did not.
Otherwise, it would say, "Did you fix the missing Modron piece yet?" If it was for me, but I guess it's for you.
Okay.
So no, we haven't fixed the missing Modron piece yet.
Oh, we haven't fixed it. I think it's you haven't fixed it yet.
It might just never get fixed. Who knows? Let's see. The next question is from JMick Unyielding, who asks, do you think we could see a graphic setting to turn off champion-specific UI, or overlays in this case, like Mahen's meter or Desmond's moon? It can be very hard to see the character and any skins they have around them. It's an interesting question. Are we asking to turn off all overlays with one click? Or are we asking for literally like a list of each of the overlays and be able to turn them off? Like you want to turn off Mahen's meter and Desmond's moon, but you don't want to turn off Voronika's socialite count or something like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. This feels like something that if we were to implement it, it could be like in the character sheet under like the ability specific overlays, hide or show. Something could be added for that.
That would be interesting.
But this also does, fall into my favorite category, which is items that you could adjust, forget you adjusted them, and then wonder why you're not seeing the ability effect, which I'm always pretty hesitant to approve changes that do that. Because they just create more work for Sean, unfortunately, or Sean and Taylor. I always forget that we haven't updated the way I say that on stream. In fact, I think Taylor covers more of the tickets now than Sean does. But anyway, it creates more work for people who have to answer tickets, and that we don't want. Yeah. Okay.
What do we got? We got a couple minutes more?
We do. A couple more questions.
Let's go on to a couple more questions. This next one is from Maniac Clown, who asks, why is it that with the scroll bars in Windows, clicking the arrows barely nudges the window contents, while clicking in the scroll bar's empty area doesn't do anything at all? Yeah, Dave.
Was
What's
this
up with
where
your
I
scroll bars?
misinterpret the question to be asking about scroll bars in Windows rather than this?
No, it's lowercase w, so
Oh, okay. Okay.
it's Windows, not Windows.
Yeah. I don't have a good answer to that beyond. Yeah, I don't know how to say this other than we didn't do a very good job on that.
Yeah, the scroll bars are one of those things that you don't generally just get for free, unless you're, working in a, like a Windows like IDE
Yeah,
language
lots
where
of
you just
UI
drag and
kits.
drop those in. But yeah,
And because of the nature of, I think at this point, Unity's UI systems do have scroll bars that do behave nicely. But the caveat on that, of course, is that our engine was something that, for the 2D portion, that we built, because when we started working on our first Unity 2D engine portions, it was Unity didn't have very good 2D support. It was something they added after the fact. And so we built our own, and we built our engine on top of that, and we had lots of great stuff going with that. And then when Unity did add, much better 2D support, switching over didn't make sense, and so we've continued, of course, to use our own engine. Anyway, long story short is that the scroll windows were something that we, as a component, that we had to write, and it's optimized for either like touch motion, like if you're moving it with your finger, or using a mouse scroll wheel, or grabbing the bar and moving it. And then the interim portions, the up and down arrows and clicking on the bar itself, was something that, now I thought you could click on the bar itself, but maybe that's something that had to be implemented on a per window basis. And then the actual amount, like the percent it gets moved when you click on the bottom thing, I also think that's something that had to be specified on the window as part of the way it was implemented. And as people added new windows, they just simply didn't add that. And I think it's because typically our approach is to just put the mouse cursor over it and scroll the wheel or grab the bar. Mm-hmm. And so I think the real answer here is, because that's the way we use it internally, we never optimized the click arrows or the actual bar for movement. So it is sort of on us that we didn't finish implementing that. And I'm surprised actually that we don't hear about this more frequently. But maybe people typically just go for the mouse over the window and run the scroll bar, or run the mouse wheel rather. But
scrolling things is, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You'd think it'd be simple, but it's not as simple as it should be. Especially once you get touch controls in there as well. Making a really nice scrolling sort of touch scroll is so hard.
Yeah, getting that rubber banding right was really tricky. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say that we managed to pull it off.
No, and I see it all the time in other games as well, where it's just like, oh, this just does not feel good, and it's hard to get right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that ended up being the last question.
Yeah, I think we used up all of our remaining time.
Yeah, so if we didn't get to your question, don't worry, you'll have another opportunity. We'll be back live again at this same time next week. Before we sign off, though, we'd like to thank our tireless mods. This week it was Mars and Jordan. So they're the two who copy your questions into our questions doc and make things go so smoothly. So thanks, guys.
And of course, thanks to all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, asking such great questions, and enjoying the game. Because without you, no one here would get to do what we do.
And we like what we do.
All right. That's enough for today. Goodbye, everyone.
Ciao. Do you have anything for the hot mic?
I don't know. Last week someone asked if I had a tan. I've been getting a lot of sun.
I think we have to dress that guy up, the guy doing the construction, up in like a big trench coat, and he can cosplay Human.
All right. Swing and a miss.